What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Nasty here with a tier ranking video. I actually wanted to start doing these tier ranking videos, and I've been able to consistently pump out my power ranking videos lately, but I want to start, mixing in some smaller videos. I want to start breaking down fights. There's a fight this weekend. The card's not really all that great, so I'm probably not going to start with that one. I'll probably do my homework for the next UFC actual pay-per-view event. I've been stumbling around on these tier maker websites trying to find some places, some tiers that people have designed with fighters. I started to find one with categories. Ideally, I would like to do one for every single category ever, flyweight all the way up to heavyweight. But I figured as I'm trying to find those, or maybe I'll have to make them myself, we could start out with this whole tier list. It's like a GOAT tier list, I think is what it was called. It's got a whole slew of high-level fighters, and you can rank them from dog shit, decent, good, very good, all the way up to GOAT. And so we'll go through. There's actually a lot of fighters on this tier list where it's actually really hard to place them. And I didn't know exactly how I wanted to go about doing my criteria for these tier rankings and when it comes to the fighters. Fighting is very much predicated on how training camps go, who your training partners are, the stylistic matchup, how on point, how focused a fighter is, how seriously they're taking fighting. There's definitely guys that are going to be ranked in odd spots for me, to where the general public will be like, why would you rank that fighter there? And a lot of it has to do with some fighters will get ranked higher and lower, even though their skill sets might indicate they could be at a different spot. But there are fighters that have showcased a whole wide array of skills and high-level abilities, not really be able to put it all together, whether it be, they're injured a lot, bad stylistic matchups. Fight IQ is huge. There's definitely some fighters on this list who, at times, in my opinion, some, obviously I'm not a professional fighter. I've trained for over a decade. I do think that from a fundamental standpoint, I know tactics very, very well when it comes to not just football, but obviously fighting and MMA. And I do think there's a handful of fighters on this list that never truly threw their skill sets together in a well-rounded form to beat some guys that they should have beaten. And there's a specific fighter on here who, I've always thought that was his knock for years. So, we'll get into it. Like I said, I'm hoping I can find some ones where I can go division by division, but this is apparently like a GOAT tier. As you can see, anyone that's ever watched fighting before, these are some of the best fighters. Some of them, there's a few on here, not so much, but most of these guys are some of the best fighters that have ever fought in MMA. So we'll get right into it. So Francis Ngannou, I think this is. It's hard to tell sometimes who these people are. But Francis Ngannou, this is one of the hard ones, right? Well, he's obviously the heavyweight champion right now. Francis Ngannou, his takedown defense has gotten a lot better. I do think his takedown defense has gotten better from an actual technical standpoint. His timing's gotten a lot better on trying to defend takedowns and stuff. But I do think the big X factor, which helps him a lot, is he's got the nuclear option. He could fucking just hit you once. I know the heavyweight division, a lot of guys go down. When they get hit, clean punches, just hard to gauge who's going to win a heavyweight fight, especially like in the mid to lower tier. It's anyone's game. I don't really bet on the heavyweights unless, they're more high level. Francis Ngannou's hard. So he beats Stipe, who probably is the heavyweight GOAT. Outside of his crazy punching power, he does put his punches together really quick, albeit he's not really that crisp of a striker. He actually has a lot of improving to do, which is crazy considering he has the strap. He mixes in some low kicks every now and then. He doesn't really use a lot of clinch work like elbows and knees. When he gets inside, he, primarily tries to single collar tie and just blast underneath or over the tops of dudes' guards. But he does most of his damage, closing the distance to get to medium range and just clubbing people, just chase them until their back's against the fence, and then he finishes them off. So this is tough. In terms of, if you're going to go into GOAT status, it's an amalgamation of things. You need to obviously be really, really well-rounded. and you have to have longevity defending the title. Who did you beat? Things of that nature. Consistency. He doesn't fight a lot lately because he's going through the contract dispute. As much as people get annoyed by this, I'm putting Ngannou into, I'll say, very good. Some can argue if you're being super serious about the fundamentals of fighting, and especially his grappling's not really all that great. I can understand people wanting to put him in good, but he's still super effective. He's been beating almost everyone they put in front of him, and he's currently a champ. So I can't put him in GOAT status, but I will put him at very good. Dominic Cruz. Well, if anyone knows fighting, this is a GOAT status one, especially for me. If you know me, one of my favorite fighters of all time. Dominic Cruz is a very well-rounded fighter. Beat multiple generations of guys at bantamweight. It could just really do a lot of different things well. He's got really good defensive grappling. He's got very unorthodox offensive grappling that he, uses mostly when he's darting in and throwing a lot of his odd punching exchanges. He's got some odd double leg takedowns and ankle picks, and likes to shoot for dart punches and clasp people's knees. I would say where Dominic Cruz is deficient, obviously everyone knows he's not a power puncher. I do think his ability to hurt dudes with his volume and his medium punches, I think, is a little bit underrated. He's definitely beat some dudes down and TKO dudes and stuff, and he does a pretty good job when he's got guys hurt, putting them away. I would say we don't see it a lot, but I would say, we don't see enough of his actual pure top game, because a lot of times he's on the outside picking dudes apart. So that could be probably a deficiency there. You don't see him off his back really much. He's got really good takedown defense. When he does get taken down, he scrambles back up to his feet. Even though he uses this hybrid shoulder rolling darting style, he does mix kicks in really well, and he's just been a really hard read. His movement is at one point was some of the best, probably the best in all of MMA. His ability to corral guys into looping punches and looping kicks. Just very effective at fighting on the back foot, pivoting, cutting off angles, and closing distance on guys. To me, he's a GOAT tier fighter. Held the belt for I don't know how long. I mean, age always catches up to you. He's predicated most of his style off speed and timing and agility, and always being 2 steps ahead of people. If that's your base to your game, that tends to go quicker than power. But I mean, I think he's closer to 40 now. Still out here fighting really good guys. I mean, love that dude. Dominic Cruz, GOAT tier. So here's another hard one. Edson Barboza. Edson Barboza. So this is one of those ones that's really tough. On his best day, you could probably throw him in the very good. But I'm torn on whether I want to throw him into good or very good. Edson Barboza is a guy who's got really, really, really good takedown defense. He's got submissions on his record, but I think off his back, most of his skill set off his back is predicated on, getting his guard back, trying to sweep guys or get back up to his feet. A lot of times he's one of those dudes where he gets put on his back and he's mostly just trying to control a guy enough to crawl backwards to the fence so he can get up. Kickboxing, fucking one of the best strikers in all of MMA. I would say in the earlier years, he lacked a lot of polish in his boxing, a lot of awkward looping punches, albeit it comes really fast. I just think his pure ability to string together combinations was not really all that high level. It got a little better towards the end of his career. He's really put a lot of pop on his punches. His fight with Dan Hooker, it was like that scene out of that movie with fucking Rocky when he's hitting the fucking meat slabs and the meat carcasses. I mean, he was just putting on a boxing clinic to the Hangman's fucking lower body and just really beat him up. And obviously, as we all know, Edson Barboza has highlight real knockouts, spinning hook kick, all that stuff. Ideally, he's just trying to use his hands to set up his kicks. Just uber athletic. That's another thing that's hard about placing him is his strike, that come forward, front foot heavy, snapping those kicks to the legs and exploding on dudes. He could throw flying knees and elbows in there from time to time. His athleticism makes it so his fighting style, in my opinion, is very effective. A lot of guys are taking advantage of him, however, backing up. He hasn't been the greatest fighter backing up. I do think when he gets hurt towards the later rounds, too, he can kind of... He's one of those guys where his gas tank's not elite, and he definitely slows down a little bit, but he still stays in there and fights. This is tough. I mean, I'm going to have to put Edson Barboza at good because I don't think he's probably as well-rounded as a lot of these guys up here, but God, he's like right on the cusp for me about being. He's got to be probably the highest level good fighter. A lot of people would call him a gatekeeper, but, you know, he's still a fantastic fighter. If you don't take him fucking seriously and you ain't got your, you know, if your striking and your grappling shoes aren't on point, he's always a danger to take almost any dude out he fights. So Edson Barboza, I will put him in good. Jon Jones, everyone already knows that's a GOAT tier. Jon Jones, well, I mean, what can you say? One of the best grapplers and strikers. People like the grappling and he wrestled and all that stuff, but he's literally one of the hands down the most elite strikers in all of MMA. Lack a little bit of punch and power, but no one gauges distance and utilizes the level of distance advantage that he has over all these fighters. He's got everything. He can engage you in a full up-close clinch range. He can come to medium distances of clinch with those long arms and collapse in with elbows, all kinds of different punches, knees. Now, he could do everything in the takedown department, from fucking lateral drops, suplexes, single leg takedowns, double leg takedowns. There's just really nothing. There's nothing that Jon Jones can't do. And then, you know, what's crazy about a guy, a lot of times we attribute these guys get in trouble all the time or have attitudes, you always wonder, but this dude's got like insane heart. Hands down one of the toughest fighters ever, one of the smartest fighters ever. Really good at faking kicks to the body, into the stomach, and coming up and, you know, dropping kicks on dudes' noggins. Remember that, you know, he took DC out with a fucking head kick. But Jon Jones is just a fucking animal. When it comes to being efficient at all distances in styles of attacks that you could do on an opponent, whether it's grappling or striking, Jon Jones just has that deep in spades. Some would argue he's the best fighter ever. I mean, he also meets the criteria for being like the biggest GOAT. Maybe I'll like go like this and just like put the guys in order as we go. Like the first guy in each column is best. Maybe I'll rank them sideways too. But you make the argument Jon Jones is the GOAT. He might be the best fighter we've ever seen. So Jon Jones, obviously, GOAT status. Jose Aldo, here's another dude, GOAT status. This is another one of my favorite fighters ever. Jose Aldo beat multiple generations, like two, some could argue three, you know, with the WEC days, generations of, you know, featherweights. I've always made the argument that there's a few guys that when they were at the best of their abilities, that they were the most dangerous fighters ever. Jose Aldo, hands down, when he was in his prime, late 20s to early 30s, was hands down one of the most dangerous fighters to ever fight, period. Wasn't really crazy with the volume, but he was a really good counter striker. His 2 and 3 punch combinations mixed with his leg kicks were just so fast, so crisp, so devastating. Really good counter shots to the body when guys come in on him. And then probably the best takedown defense probably of all time. Like, to this day, dudes aren't taking him down, and he's, 34 years old now? He's still relatively young, but you got to remember he's been fighting forever. Might be the craziest mix of explosiveness, athleticism, power, timing. Solid grappler, but never was really used it all that much. I don't even know how many submissions he has on his record. But just, you know, like 1 percentile takedown defense. Like, it's got to be like in the 90 percentile. Would literally just stuff everyone's takedowns and just like obliterate them head to toe. All the leg kicks in that Uriah Faber fight, like Uriah Faber couldn't walk for like a fucking week or some shit. Yeah. Jose Aldo, he's a GOAT. At one point, one of the most complete fighters in MMA, just explosive, powerful, aggressive. Love that dude. So yeah, Rory McDonald. So I put Rory McDonald in very good. Rory McDonald's an odd one because Rory McDonald was a guy who everyone thought could eventually have been a UFC champion. And people can correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's won a title in Bellator or someplace else. I'm not exactly sure. I do think that early on in his career, I sense, and this is just an opinion, I used to sense a level of maybe being in his own head, a little bit not confident in his abilities, but he's one of the most well-rounded fighters on this list. Rory McDonald, really good jab, really good job at pumping jabs and hitting dudes with crosses, underrated, boxing he had. It was a very steady and patient boxing. Underrated power, too. Not really the best in terms of layering his kicks into his striking, but the dude could kick. Really good grappler, training up with all those monsters up there, the TriStar camp. Like I said, I felt early on he just didn't have the confidence. He lacked a level of aggression that I feel bad for a guy of his skill set. And he really didn't start digging it deep and putting the aggression and facing the adversity until he got later in his career. And he started putting on some really good fights towards the end of his UFC run. Like that fight with Robbie Lawler, that fight was so fucking ridiculous, dude. Like, I remember watching that shit and I fucking thought I was going to have an anxiety attack. I never seen two dudes face the day and throw down like that. And you remember Rory McDonald in the very end. He just couldn't take the pain anymore. Fucking Robbie Lawler, and still with his fucking lip and shit. God, Rory, to me, very good. I feel as though, I think that what makes it, obviously he doesn't have a title. So if you haven't won a lot and you haven't consistently been beating all the top guys and you haven't at least gotten close to really sniffing a strap, you have to be very exceptional if you don't have any hardware for any amount of time. So he goes into very good for me solely because I really feel like he never optimized his potential. I really feel like he had the potential to be a champion, and for whatever reason, he just really didn't get it together. I mean, sometimes you got guys like that. I also thought he had some fucking stinkers of fights too. I think he's one of those guys that's really okay with slowing a fight down. He had this weird ability to where his fundamentals were so good that he could just stay behind his jab and use his takedown defense, and he would slow fights to a crawl and win these decisions off dudes. Dudes would come out, I swear, dudes would come out of fights with him and be like, what the fuck just happened to there? I'm not really beat up. His dude won, but he used to neutralize fighters. It was fucking odd. But he was never really able to really put fighters away and be really all that exciting. If you like technical fights, Rory McDonald is a guy to watch, but I feel like he just didn't have the aggression and didn't implement the strategies enough to really just fucking optimize his potential and get a title and go on a run. So he goes into very good for me. So this is another one that's a friggin' hard one, as much as most people can't stand this guy. And my buddy Anton and I have talked about this a bunch. Yeah, he beat Mighty Mouse. Yeah, is he ultra skilled? It's hard because I feel like no matter what I do, I feel like there's going to be people that are going to be like, you're an idiot for not putting him in the GOATs because he won 2 titles. There's dudes that have won 2 titles where, they were put in very good positions to win those 2 titles. I thought Mighty Mouse beat him the second time, and he got smoked the first time by Mighty Mouse. We all know Henry Cejudo. This might be a biased pick, but I mean, I don't consider him in the GOAT tier. I don't. I'm going to put him in very good because he's literally one of the best flyweights ever. He could probably go up in weight classes and beat people. I think there's ways you could take advantage of Cejudo in the striking department. His boxing's not as crisp as people think it is. And he kind of plays this weird game where he stands heavy on that foot and throws this karate stance around. I think that if he does come back and go up against Volkanovski, I think Volkanovski's just, the style that Cejudo implements now when he fights, where he's primarily looking to strike, I don't think he could beat Volkanovski unless he comes back and implements a heavy wrestling strategy. I don't think he can strike with Volk. I think Volk probably put him away, especially when you haven't been fighting for a while. But Cejudo vastly improved in the striking department. Obviously, he got that Olympic pedigree in the athleticism. But for me, it was kind of one of those things where he got perfectly put into place to win those 2 titles, and it's kind of, for me, I feel like you can bag on Cejudo a little bit more than you can bag on Conor because, Conor definitively went out there and beat a couple guys that were really good at times to win those titles too. He beat Jose Aldo. He starched Aldo. He went up and smoked Eddie Alvarez, who was fucking just destroying guys. The way Cejudo won the belts and then he dipped and stuff like that, and I don't know. It's just, I can't put him into the GOAT tier. I'll probably get a lot of hate for that, but I can't put him into the GOAT tier. Same thing with Conor McGregor. I see this is another hard one, though, too, because I feel like in a straight-up fight where if Cejudo implemented the way he's been fighting dudes at towards the end of his career against Conor, I think Conor would knock Cejudo the fuck out. Obviously, Conor's a lot bigger than him. Conor's another tough one. Kind of got fast-tracked towards his titles and doesn't have the longevity that these guys have up top or some of these dudes are going to be. And I think that currently, and even Conor fighting to the best of his ability, I do think there's some dudes at 155 right now that are in the very good category that would take him out. We already seen Dustin Poirier take him out. I mean, what's there not to like about Conor? He's exciting to fight, although I do think his older fighting style gave people way more fits and way more things to think about. I think the fact that he's turned into a more boxing-heavy fighter has really been a big part of why he has lost. Not to mention he, mostly cares about everything else besides fighting. But when he was at 145, he came out with this crazy fucking unorthodox kung fu stance, and he was walking dudes down, throwing the kicks to the legs, throwing that teep kick, just beating people's bodies up. A lot of cool shovel punch techniques where he's reaching out with a punch and just swiveling the shoulders a little bit and then throwing the punch that he's just hanging out there, just like a little shovel, like a bat. Obviously with crazy power, timing and accuracy, he has that in spades, and pretty much every type of strike he throws. A spot that I think he's underrated is I think he's really good in the clinch. I think dudes get in the clinch with him if they don't have the ability to take him down. They're like, fuck, he's throwing fucking elbows, uppercuts, knees, slaps to the head. When he pivots and pummels and rips dudes right or left with his tie clench, he's throwing shit on the exit. Has the ability to cut off all these crazy angles and hit dudes with shots. In his fight against Eddie Alvarez, he just picked Eddie apart. Where his deficiencies are, I feel, is obviously he's changing style. Now he just plods forward. He focuses way more on the power aspect instead of being accurate. It's 2 and 3 punch combinations, kicks to the inside leg, just, focusing on just a boxing heavy approach. He's gotten a lot bigger. I don't think he's as fast as he used to be, but he has everything standing in the arsenal to, when he stands in front of another man, to put another man away if he fights the best of his ability. But I miss that agile kung fu, mixing the kung fu stance in with the boxing. He was so fast and quick on his feet. He could stand sideways and still dart in and get his feet in good position to hit dudes with combinations and cut angles on guys. Obviously, he could be taken down. There's a lot of dudes in that division that'd be able to take him down. And although he does defend himself decently and he fights from a striking standpoint, fights well off his back, you could clearly see that there's a distance between him and a lot of the guys when he goes on the ground. Even though he does a really good job defending himself, you're still losing time on the ground. Yeah, he can get back up to his feet. But he's lost a lot of fights by submission. So he has some definite deficiencies in terms of not getting taken down, defend himself on the ground. We don't really see much of his top game much. I just think there's some guys in this division that are going to be in the very good that could take him out at his weight. So if I reshuffled these in order, I feel like I would probably do this if I shuffled these guys in order. Right now, over here, I don't know. Over here, I don't know. I'd probably keep it like that as much as I love Cruz. So is this Michael Bisping? I'm having a hard time seeing. Michael Bisping. This is hard. So Michael Bisping's going to go in very good for me. So Michael Bisping, very, very technical and ordinary approach to fighting. Solid takedown defense. In his early years, he did a really good job clinching dudes up, and he would get guys on the ground. When he would get in top position, he would pummel guys. I remember he used to fight at 205. Really good, really crisp boxing, really good footwork. Dudes sleep on his power, but there's a few guys that thought they were going to walk in and just fuck Mike Bisping up. He ended up TKOing him. He won the middleweight title. He's obviously not a GOAT, but I love Michael Bisping. He just, a lot of guys would have the ups and downs and the career this guy's had and, pack it in, but he kept fighting. There's something to be said for fighting back, and He fought a lot of dudes that fucking were juiced up and ultra skilled, beat some of them, lost to some of them. But Mike's just a fighter through and through. Underrated martial artist. He has underrated kicking skills, even though he doesn't really use them all that much. Just a really good fight IQ. Durable, crazy cardio. You know that when you come into a fight with Michael Bisping that you can't really make mistakes. He's going to capitalize on those mistakes. He's not going to fall into a lot of stupid mistakes. Just a very, very technical, a very good fighter. So Michael Bisping goes into very good for me. I feel bad for Ngannou because I keep sliding Ngannou back. I feel like people would probably think that just because he starches everyone, I got to like put him up into like a higher status or rank him higher. But, you know, when you compare his skills overall to the rest of these guys, it's just not there. People are probably going to hate this one. Tyron Woodley goes into good for me. So this is mostly from a strategic standpoint. Tyron Woodley, with his physique, his explosiveness, he's been in the game so long, and he just never really evolved all that much as a fighter. You can get away with, you know, starching guys that aren't going to use the proper techniques to fight your fighting style. When he lost his title to Kamaru Usman, he just backed up. And I know that Woodley's an all-American wrestler, but Kamaru Usman is a fucking freak. Kamaru Usman can wrestle with the best of them. If you really thought the game plan was fantastic for you to just back all the way up to the fucking cage and just hope that you land a big shot on a dude that's just going to cascade you with punches and take you down. And he's fought like that for most of his career. I mean, it's hard for me to say that he's an overtly skilled and an overtly exciting fighter. I think at times Woodley's shown that he has the explosive capability every now and then to flash a knock dude out, throw a fucking wild double leg and beat a dude down. But for the most part, he's really not all that exciting. I really feel like he had potential to be very good or hold on to that title for a long time. And I think it's mostly how he decides to approach fighting. Now, I do think a lot of that has to do with his gas tank. He is shown in fights where he definitely loses steam, and I think his fighting style, coupled with what it takes to keep that fighting style up, if you turn the tempo up on it, I just don't think he has the tank to do that in 5-round fights. You can have all the skills in the book, but if you don't know how to fucking implement them consistently on guys, you could lose to dudes that you probably wouldn't, you know, should lose to. Now, I will say he's probably in the top. He's probably ahead of Barboza. Like, he developed okay boxing, but a lot of times guys get complacent with that shit when they fucking knock a couple dudes dead with explosive power. He's not going to go out there and outbox the best boxers. He's not going to go out there and out kickbox the best kickboxers. Has really good offensive wrestling. At times didn't really use it a lot. And against some of the better takedown artists like Kamaru Usman, you know, he was just getting taken down. He got overwhelmed by Kobe Covington, got taken down, beat up. He can't beat the guys that are overtly skilled, that will cascade him with pace and actually implement that skill set upon him and not back up. It's purely, you know, not having enough skills in terms of technicality in the striking department and then implementing them in a gas tank. So I can't put him, it's hard. I feel like I can't put him into very good, but it's close. And it's crazy because he's won a title too. I feel like a lot of people shit on me. I don't know. Should I put him into very good? It's hard, right? I do believe he's beat a lot of guys that aren't that great. I don't know. Tyron Woodley, very good or not? We'll come back to Tyron Woodley. I'm torn because, like, both these guys are fucking fantastic fighters. I don't know. But I feel like if I put Tyron Woodley up into very good, then I have to put Edson Barboza up into very good. Ooh, it's tough. Because I feel like everyone would be like, people that don't watch fighting enough, oh, like, why don't you just put him up into very good because he's athletic and he can grapple and he punches hard and stuff. But, like, he's just made so many mistakes in fights. Just so many mistakes that made it so he lost fights. And sometimes he does absolutely nothing, too, which is, like, just, it's brutal. But maybe I'll come back to Woodley at another time. So TJ Dillashaw. TJ Dillashaw goes into very good. TJ Dillashaw, wide array of striking techniques. He's got a very good jab, double pump jab, comes over the top with shots. Does a good job layering in head kicks. He's got pretty good footwork. Can fight for days. Great offensive wrestling, great offensive grappling, good defensive grappling, whether it's stuffing takedowns. I would say that what holds him back sometimes in some of his fights is I think he overuses his footwork at times. I think he uses a lot of the angles and the pivoting and the ducking under and stuff and the duck under glancing shots to get inside on guys. I think he kind of uses them too much, and I think a lot of times he doesn't actually cut angles off on guys. I think he does a whole lot of upper body movement and stepping in, and instead of actually shifting right and left and making angles, like he's kind of just changing the level, his level of his head instead of moving side to side. And I think that's why he gets hit more than he probably should. But I mean, he's extremely well-rounded. Boxing, kickboxing, offensive grappling. He can take dudes' backs, submit them. Really good at takedown defense. My cat's hopping up here again. She already knocked one of my drinks down. So yeah, TJ Dillashaw, he's got a big fight coming up, I think. I think he's fighting for a title, if I'm not. Yeah, against Aljamain Sterling. That'll be a big test for Aljamain Sterling. He's fighting a very well-rounded guy. Let's see what TJ Dillashaw can do here. 37? So Chris Weidman is a hard one, similar to Tyron Woodley. Chris Weidman is a guy at times who's shown shitty fight IQ, in my opinion. He's a guy that's not been consistent at times. I really do think that he was a perfect storm at the time to beat Anderson Silva. You got to remember, he's had Weidman's had a lot of injuries. He's hard to place. Boxing, solid. Kickboxing, not that great. He single-handedly made a bad decision with his kickboxing by trying to throw a spinning fucking wheel kick at Rockhold, got taken down and beat down. He's got solid. I think his grappling for MMA was really good at one point, and I think he strayed away from it. From a strategical standpoint, when you have solid MMA grappling, you should probably not stay away from it. And I have a buddy, we talk about this all the time, the wrestlers that fall in love with striking. They get okay at striking, they get a couple TKOs, they start thinking like it's smart to get away from the grappling, man. If you can fucking strangle people, hold control position, take dudes down, you have to at least make it a threat or layer it in often. It's hard. He won the title, but now he's on a series losing streak. And honestly, he beat Anderson Silva twice, but does anyone not think that if Anderson Silva wasn't fucking around in the first fight, and if he fought smarter, that fight wouldn't have been more competitive? And then obviously he breaks his leg a second time. I do think Chris Weidman is kind of designed to beat a guy like an older Anderson Silva. It's hard for me because I really don't think he's that smart of a fighter. I think early on he was just physically imposing, taking dudes down, beating them up, decent striking. It's hard. I know some of these guys have won titles, but at the highest level, styles truly make fights. And you find out real quick what guys have the consistency and the skill set to match up against a lot of styles. I don't think he's that durable. He started to not be really durable not long after those fights with Anderson Silva. He could be taken advantage of on the feet. I don't really think he's that fast with his striking. So I think so far some of these good guys, I think that people are going to get worked up over these. But right now I have to put them somewhere. So Alistair Overeem. This is another hard one. Alistair Overeem I'm probably going to put into good. So Alistair Overeem throughout his career, if you look at what he could do really, really well, you probably should put him in very good. So I'm torn on if I should put him into very good or not. One of the best fucking strikers in the history of combat sports. Wicked chinny. He was chinny all the way back in the day when he was skinny Overeem, fighting dudes over in Pride. Shogun started the string of his knockouts. Shogun knocked his fucking face in. He didn't know where the fuck he was. I'll never forget that when I was younger, watching Shogun just smash his ass. But what's there not to like offensively about Overeem? So a lot of people don't know Overeem has a lot of submission victories too. He's got a really good guillotine. When he gets on top of dudes in top position, he can actually beat them up really bad and advance for more like power style submissions. Amazing kickboxer, kicks to the body, kicks to legs. Once he was like Overeem, he was literally just walking dudes down and throwing knees into their chest and their head. I would say his pure boxing in terms of like putting together boxing combinations is not super high level, but his ability to mix together and disguise his power kicks with his hands and attack the outside and leave foot on guys and throw the speed of his punches used to be really wild. Just a very high level striker, high level power in everything he does. Defensive grappling throughout the years has been really, really good. I mean, against the top guys, you could probably get taken down, but in the heavyweight, they're not really fighting guys that can grapple. So a lot of times he's living by the sword. Like, can he be efficient and take dudes out and pick his shots right and not get hit enough? If he does that, he's usually knocking stuffing takedowns and just knocking everyone dead. Problem is he's gotten older, he's gotten a little bit slower, and he never was able to take a punch. And that's another reason why I put him into good is I feel like it's odd. He has a level of fight IQ to where it's like a borderline arrogance disorder. Like, I think that because he is who he is and he's knocked out everyone he's knocked out, I think he truly goes into every fight just hoping that he doesn't get hit with like, he comes forward with this arrogance with like a lot of disregard for what dudes are going to throw at him. And he does his thing and then boom, he gets hit and he goes down. So for me, he's another one that's hard. I'm going to put him into good. I mean, I feel like he should have won a fucking title, the UFC title. Like if he could be durable and do a better job at not getting hit, he probably could have won the UFC heavyweight title. Anderson Silva, GOAT tier. Now I've backed on Anderson Silva over the years because I feel like he hasn't fought the best competition, but even the medium levels of competition and some of the best levels of competition he fought, he fucking murdered dudes. He's kind of like the Zlatan Ibrahimovic of MMA, one of the all-time most skilled fighters and has one of the craziest highlight reels ever. Anderson Silva, high-level boxing. He boxes professionally. He could win a professional boxing match against a lot of guys. One of the most ridiculous clinches ever. His ability to control dudes in the tie plum, in the clinch, and just land knees to the body, to the head. His level of control in the clinch is like really something to behold, especially when he was younger and on his title run. When he took Rich Franklin, the first time he whooped Rich Franklin's ass, I'll never forget it. I'll always remember this MMA moment. He started beating the shit out of Rich Franklin, and Rich Franklin was like, oh, fuck, I've never found anything like this before. And at one point, he had Rich Franklin against the fence in the tie clinch, and he, like, went to go rake Rich to the left, and it put Rich in front of the camera, and Rich tried to push his face and successfully kind of, like, posted back, and you could see Rich's face as he posted back and kind of got a little distance. His eyes were huge like a deer in the headlights. He was like, oh, fuck, and then Anderson just fucking blasted him with another knee. Like, he was absolutely helpless in Anderson's clinch. Nasty in the clinch. He had solid takedown defense when you can get him on the ground. He was, really good at getting to his guard, sweeping guys, threatening with submissions. He's actually pretty hard to take down, threatening, like telling dudes, come on, try to take me down and shit. Has some of the craziest highlight reel knockouts ever. Was just a bad motherfucker right there. So Anderson Silva, obviously we don't need to get into how many title defenses he had. So Anderson Silva GOAT. So this one people probably won't like. Anthony Pettis goes into very good for me. He does have one terrible disadvantages. Guys start to figure out when they can come forward on him that they can oppose a volume style striking on him. But when you look at what he's done, he's won a title. At one point, that dude could finish you any way, shape, or form. It did not matter. He could finish you with boxing. He would finish you with crazy kicks, knees. His kick to the body on Donald Cerrone, it literally crumpled him into a ball and he slid back almost like some fucking like Wind Waker shit. I don't even know. Like, it looked like the wind blew him away. Pettis at one time was hands down one of the most dangerous fighters in his weight class. A lot of people thought he was going to lose to Benson Henderson the second time around. He showed at Case how crazy his guard is, submitting him with a fucking armbar. High-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, high-level kickboxer. The only problem with him is he didn't evolve as a fighter. Didn't really have much with the offensive grappling. He kind of literally looked to just do his thing. In the striking department, guys knew that they could get on him, take him down, and wade through some of the submission attempts. A lot of guys knew they can come forward, and he just really wouldn't amount a lot of offense going backwards. But at his peak, he was a really, really, really good mixed martial artist that could, even though he didn't have the best wrestling chops, could really layer in his transitioning submissions, whether it's guillotines or arm bars. Truly a dangerous fighter at one point. I feel like I got to put Anthony Pettis at very good. Cody Garbrandt. So Cody Garbrandt goes into good for me. Cody Garbrandt, to me, has always been a dangerous fighter. But I really feel like it's odd to me. How can you go out there, and I don't know if it's because Dominic fought all his buddies and he had the blueprint on beating Dom, but how can you go out there and just have the patience, the discipline, and the crazy fight IQ to just let Dom come to you and use angles against the dude who's amazing at cutting off angles and boxing the shit out of him for 5 rounds straight? He's got solid boxing. I would say that he gets a little bit too loopy with his punches. I think he gets over aggressive, gets out of position. And I think that when he does that and he comes forward, he leaves himself open to a lot of shots, especially straight punches. Doesn't really set up, in my opinion, a lot of his boxing to the best of his ability. Not a big pumper of his jab, doesn't fight behind his jab a lot. He's usually, his first punch, he's setting up some level of a hook. He likes to throw hooks and then uppercuts. Got solid kicks to the leg. Got really solid takedown defense. Not much in terms of the offensive jiu-jitsu attacks. He's not really looking to submit guys. He's got solid wrestling against guys that aren't that great at wrestling, but mostly he's trying to just defend the takedown, walk dudes down, blast them. To his credit, he's had some really good fights. He's had some highlight reel knockouts. But I just think he's a very straightforward, one-dimensional approach fighter. Can't put him up here or the rest of these guys up in very good. Obviously not putting him in the GOAT. But Cody Garbrandt, he's a good fighter. So Max Holloway, this is the hard one. I will put Max Holloway up in GOAT status, obviously, because he took Aldo out a bunch of times, defended his title a bunch of times. I feel like you could have, more than one GOAT in a weight division. However, I do feel bad for Max Holloway now. I have the feeling that the fighting, all the years of fighting, he's fought so much. He's been in so many battles. That shit takes its toll on you over time. I really think as the fighters evolve, even though he's ultra skilled, really good takedown defense, really good jiu-jitsu skills, really solid boxing. I would say a lot of his ability to TKO guys comes from his fact that he could put on an insane pace. And just cascade dudes with multiple punches. I would say one of the deficiencies in his striking is, I would say he does have a complete tool bag in striking, but he doesn't use a complete tool bag. He's definitely more boxing based. And I think he fights in a very linear pressure style. He's just marching forward on guys. He does a decent job making dudes miss and cutting angles when he's inside. But when it comes to approaching a dude and trying to find entryways in to hit guys cleanly without getting hit, he takes more of the approach of just kind of plotting forward on guys and exchanging punches with them to land his shots. But I still think he's one of the more well-rounded fighters in this list. I still think that you could consider him a quasi-GOAT next to Jose Aldo. Although I don't know if Alexander Volkanovski's on this list, but Volkanovski's going to be making a case here soon. I don't think I see him on here. As, some people would say Volkanovski's better than both him and Aldo. It remains to be seen. But I would say Max has done enough to consider himself a GOAT tier fighter at that weight class. Alexander Gustafsson, for me, goes into very good. He couldn't beat DC. He couldn't beat Jon, but how many people have beaten DC and Jon? Alexander at one point was one of the most well-rounded fighters in his weight class. Really solid takedown defense. Really nasty top game. Not only could he move positions on guys and he gets guys on top, but they call him a fucking mauler for a reason. That dude gets top positions on dudes. He's raining punches. He's raining elbows. Really good at controlling guys on the ground when he has them hurt and he's striking. And then when you talk about his striking, just great footwork, really good at cutting angles, really good at dipping under shots and coming out the other side and blasting dudes with his own counter punches. His counter punching at one point was just absolutely fantastic. The speed and the nimbleness in which he fought at 205, I always thought was something that was really, really special. Underrated power. And he could take dudes down too. He took Jon down. I want to say he took DC down at one point. I really think Gustafsson's underrated. Just so happens that you ran into the buzzsaws at the time of Jon Jones, Anthony Rumble Johnson, DC. I felt bad. He went against Nikita Krylov recently and he got smoked. But I love the Mauler. The Mauler, hands down, is probably a top 5 205er probably of all time. He goes into very good. Donald Cerrone. So this is a hard one. Donald Cerrone's probably going to go into good. See, I feel like if I put Donald Cerrone into good, I might have to downgrade Anthony Pettis into good. Because their deficiencies are... I'm going to downgrade Anthony Pettis to good. So their deficiencies are similar, but just a very different coat of paint. Donald Cerrone, fantastic offensive kickboxer. Really good at disguising his kicks. Got a really solid jab, solid cross. Not a lot of volume comes out of Donald. In terms of when he actually goes, like he does a decent amount of volume throughout a lot of his fights in terms of actually accumulating shots, but it's because he comes forward and he's pretty active. But what I mean is like he's never been one to throw deep sets of combinations very consistently. Now he has had fights where he's blitzed dudes with some fancy 3, 4, 5 punch combinations with a kick at the end. Like when the combination he hit Rory Markham with was absolutely fucking just looked like something out of a DBZ movie. Donald, it's hard. So him and Pettis are hard. I feel like I want to upgrade them to very good. Both fighters are not that great at fighting backing up. That's been the key to beating both those guys. Pressure. They don't fight well backing up, but for different reasons. It's a different coat of paint. Donald is more of a tempo guy. He likes to come forward, that tie stance, and really put a tempo on guys, really pick his shots and stuff like that. When you're like that and you plot forward kind of and you're trying to find a rhythm, dudes disrupt that rhythm by coming forward. And he's not the best at circling away, cutting angles, going backwards. Not really great at fighting with his back against the fence. And so a lot of dudes would just corral him along the fence, beat him up along the fence, take him down. Razor wire jiu-jitsu. On more than one occasion, I think dudes thought they had the blueprint to beat him and they would take him down. Like I remember fucking who's the kid that talked shit to him? It was like, I'm gonna fucking retire you and shit. And the kid, they ended up hitting the floor. He fucking beat the shit out of him and submitted him. It's tough. Like I'm just torn. I'm torn on whether I want to move both of them up to very good because at times they've shown that they're very good. Both these guys have razor wire jiu-jitsu. Both aren't that great offensive wrestling or defensive wrestling. Both are very high-level strikers, but they approach striking very differently. It's hard. Like, their peaks are so high, but they're just not that. They're not as consistent, I feel like, as they should be to be in good. Both guys have a lot of losses. It's tough. I mean, it's really going to bug me now. I didn't think doing these tiers were going to bug me this much, but I got some fighters on here where it just bugs me. I don't know where to place them. So we'll come back to them. Amanda Nunes, she goes in the GOAT tier, obviously, based off solely from her, obviously she brings a level of skill and power and athleticism to these divisions, but then she's also just destroyed all these women in these divisions. I mean, obviously she had her slip up with Juliana Pena, but the speed is what's huge here. The athleticism is what's huge here for her. And it's why she's been able to dominate a lot of these girls, not to mention the punching power. I feel like women's MMA has evolved a lot in a skill set, but I think women's MMA is only going to evolve so much from a physicality standpoint. I'll probably get a lot of fucking pushback from that. Like fucking women can beat up men and shit. There's all that narrative. But she brings a level of speed and physicality that a lot of the girls in those divisions don't bring. Not to mention she's just so much bigger than these girls. She's bigger, faster, stronger, more aggressive, and she will fucking come forward and she will berserk and just put these shots on a lot of these women that a lot of these women can't handle. They can't handle the pace. They can't handle the power, the aggression. Solid takedown defense. We don't really see much of her jiu-jitsu. I would assume she probably grapples. But she goes in the GOAT tier. I mean, she's won 2 titles. She's beaten almost everyone. I do thought she lost one of her fights to Valentina Shevchenko. That's a whole nother discussion. Here's everyone's favorite fighter, CM Punk. He obviously goes down into fucking dog shit. CM Punk, I don't know. He's just, dog shit. What do you want to say? Rafael Dos Anjos goes up into very good. So Rafael Dos Anjos, his rise has absolutely been fucking nothing short of amazing. So he came into the UFC when I was younger. I want to say he's a few years older than me, or he might be 36. So he's 4 years older than me. But I remember watching him come in when I was like 20, which means he would have been, or maybe I was younger than that, 18. But he came in his early 20s. He went 0-2 out the gate and had a highlight reel loss to Jeremy Stevens, or Jeremy Stevens, he shot it for a takedown, or he ducked for a takedown. Jeremy Stevens hit with an uppercut and it turned him into a fucking Pez dispenser. He like flew back and hit the cage. But storms all the way back to be, a champion at one point. Really good pressure striking. His athleticism allows it, so he doesn't really need to cut angles off on guys all the time, although he does a decent job with his footwork, moving right and left when he needs to. He just comes forward with a pretty, in my opinion, pretty technical, accurate power kickboxing style of striking. And when he needs to, he's pretty solid with his jab. He can control tempo and pace of the fights. Where he really shines is when he's mixing his fucking monstrous double leg takedowns on dudes, beating dudes down. He's a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He goes into very good. I feel like at times a little bit too much of a little too aggressive, and catches himself in firefights with dudes that have, the ability to put the lights out on him. He's been hurt a couple times in fights. The fight with Eddie Alvarez, that was one of the most brutal beatings ever, when he got beat down by Eddie Alvarez. Sometimes it only takes one punch to finish a fight, and I would say that the times that he's decided to solely just strike with dudes have been his demise in some of his fights. I truly think that if he would focus a lot more on mixing the wrestling in with the striking, that he probably could have been held onto his title a little bit longer. And maybe we would be having a different conversation about Rafael Dos Anjos, but he's a fucking beast. Holly Holm goes into very good. So Holly Holm, a buddy of mine always used to talk all the time how she reminds us of like the female version of Carlos Condit. Very, very technical, high-level, patient striker with decent power. She makes up with it with not, like, I think a lot of times she hits harder because she's just very, very technical. Got really good movement, pivoting in and out, attacking laterally. Really good kickboxing skills. She does a really good job disguising some of her kicks. She's got a really good front kick too, turning side kick. Really, really good takedown defense. Her offensive grappling's not the greatest. She's not really out there looking to take people down. I would say her probably jiu-jitsu and offensive wrestling's probably her deficiency. I don't know how much she trains that stuff, but really good takedown, really good gas tank, really good at trapping girls into spots where she can implement whatever type of striking attempt she wants to use on them. She could punch in combination. She could take. She could fight. Actually, could fight a lot of different styles of striking. Like, she can come forward with more of a kickboxing approach. She can fight behind her jab. She can fight. She's actually solid in the clinch. She can make it a dirty fight. Her fight against Jermaine Durandamy, which I thought she won, and she kind of got boned on those late punches and shit. She's doing a really good job pushing Jermaine Durandamy against the fence and disengaging, throwing punches, elbows. She's about as technical. She's probably the most technical female fighter. She's right up there. It's like her, Valentina Shevchenko, and maybe like Joanna when she was in her prime. But those three girls are probably they're definitely more technical than Amanda Nunes. But it's just tough when Amanda brings that style of skill set and her berserking style. It's just hard to beat that. But Holly Holm is phenomenal. She's very good. Israel Adesanya. So based off what he's done and how he's done it, and his skill set, he goes into the GOAT tier for me. Obviously, when you talk about the GOAT, like I said before, everyone's going to want you to just pick one guy. To me, I look at it in terms of generations. Like I said, I put Max Holloway in the GOAT discussion because he's dominated another generation. I mean, what's there not to love about Israel Adesanya? I think he's got underrated punching power. He's one of the most high level kickboxing strikers. He could strike in a lot of odd ways too. His ability to use his angles, his fast twitchness, he makes a decision and he's like 2 steps ahead of guys. I know a lot of times, people have talked shit on him because he uses his skill set and his reaction time and his countering, and it can become like a boring fight where he kind of just picks dudes apart. But I was impressed when he fought Calvin Gastelum, when he's got taken down, all of a sudden he's just fucking slapping submissions. It's like no one thought he had that in his bag. I think a lot of dudes thought that he was going to get taken down when he came to the UFC. So far, phenomenal fucking takedown defense. He's shown he's gotten better on the ground. Just got, every trick in the book, knows how to set every trap when it comes to striking. And yeah, at times it might not be fascinating to a lot of people. It can be some boring fights. But hey, at the end of the day, you got to win. Really good kicks, really good knees and elbows. Obviously, he fights more. I like his fighting style because even though he has all those tricks at his disposal, I do like the fact that he a lot of times sits behind his jab. It's easier to sit behind your jab when you're as athletic as him. So a lot of guys will kind of use the jab as a defensive measure and not mount a lot of offense behind it, because when you use a jab, especially if guys try to stay away from you, you'll get really extended with that jab, whereas he does a really good job stepping in, creating enough distance to where he can pop that jab at dudes. He's always in position because of his speed to counter guys, whether he's pivoting right or left, popping the jab, coming forward. He's able to get away with a lot of different technical things because he is so fast. He is so smart. Just fucking fantastic. I hope he's one of those guys where I just hope he keeps winning. And I hope he just keeps getting better. So Izzy Adesanya, he's one of the GOATs. So here we're getting to what I was talking about guys being very skilled but not being able to put it all together. It's similar to Tyron Woodley here. Jorge Masvidal. This is hard for me. Long pause. Oh. I personally feel like I got to put Jorge Masvidal into very good. I don't know. It's tough. So what I'll do is I think I'm going to put him into good. And I can make an argument for why some people consider him very good. No, I want to put him into very good. I'm putting him in very good. So Masvidal is a very good fighter. I do think Masvidal has a level of being game. And I think his willingness to take a fight anywhere has been his downfall. If you go back and you look at Masvidal's fights, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone that's lost more close decisions or lost more split decisions. He's got a lot of split decisions against fighters he should have fought. It drags his record down. I don't think Masvidal is going to go out here and beat some of the guys that are above him in the rankings. Like, Masvidal's not going to be the champ. I don't think Masvidal could beat Dustin Poirier. But Masvidal has really, really, really good boxing, underrated power, very high level of speed and agility, really good savvy, really, really smart fighter, good at setting traps. I think a lot of times, he lulls guys in, mixing up a lot of kicks to the legs and to the body and then blasting dudes with some of his overhand shots. Really does a good job switching stance and disguising some of his switch stance overhands. That's how he got Darren Till. He was setting Till up with the teep kick and the leg kick coming forward. And then when Till came in for the power punch, he just switched stance and then came over the top with the opposite hand. Really savvy fighter. Now, even though he could be manhandled by a lot of the top tier fighters, I do think he's an underrated grappler. I think that he's shown over time he has the ability to take dudes down offensively. A lot of times he takes dudes down along the fence, up in the tie clinch. He goes down for single legs. He's really good at getting back up to his feet. He's really solid. He's actually very good at getting back up to his feet. If you take him down, he still manages to get back up. I think offensively, in terms of his top game, I think he's underrated with his top game in terms of striking and submissions. I just think that his willingness to fight down to certain dudes' levels and his willingness to fight wherever the fight goes. I don't think he's ever really trying to strategically dictate or implement a strategy to put the fight where he would need it to be more advantageous to beat guys. I think I've seen fights where dudes shoot a double leg on him and he defends it. He's up against Cage. He's just like smirking and smiling at the camera like, whatever, dude tries to go take him down, but the dude can't. And then it's, a scramble happens and he gets to his feet. He's like laughing about it like it's whatever. Definitely not a sense of urgency in certain positions. Rumors are he's a wild dude and he trains hard and shit, but I definitely think he had a lot of different focuses. If you know anything about his outside life, it's just amazing how he is this good. I think Masvidal would smash Donald Cerrone. I think he would smash Pettis, even when they were both really good. I really think Masvidal's a very good fighter. He fights the best of ability. I think he's really damn good. Obviously, he's been fighting for titles, BMF, all that shit, putting dudes away. He's put some dudes away I don't think people thought he would. Obviously, he dropped the ball against Cody Garbrandt, couldn't stop the onslaught, but I do think he's a very good fighter. In terms of fighting ability and skill set, I do think he's a really good fighter. I just think he doesn't implement it properly or doesn't care to implement it properly at times. So it's a mixed bag of results. Justin Gaethje, very good fighter. So Justin Gaethje is got one of the more traditional styles of crazy good takedown defense, come forward, brawling, but he's a really good technical brawler. He's gotten better over time at not getting hit as much. I do, however, think those hits are really catching up to him. I do think when dudes really sit down on the punches and hit him now, he's more susceptible going out. He's one of those fighters where I do worry about his longevity in terms of his life. He's been hit so freaking much, man. He definitely lives by the sword, died by the sword, but really good defensive wrestling. If he wants to, he has really good offensive wrestling. He's got a lot more crisp with his boxing and his footwork. Does a really good job at corralling guys. He does a really good job at corralling dudes and not letting them off the hook and always staying in position for him to land power punches. He's nasty in the fucking clinch. He gets that single collar tie and just runs dudes into the vents and just starts an onslaught to the body, to the head, knees. I think he's faster than people give him credit for. And obviously the punching power is just absolutely brutal. And he's done a really good job at throwing that inside leg kick and come over the top with his boxing. I just think he's a really dangerous fighter, and I really think he's a bad matchup for a lot of guys. His tool bag and striking has gotten a lot crisper, a lot deeper, and he has a gas tank, and he comes forward, and he just bombards you with combinations. And basically, you got to hope you can take the punches and keep up with that pace because that dude is going to hit you, unless you're Khabib. So, not Tony Ferguson. I was thinking of Tony Ferguson because of him, but Justin Gaethje gets put in a very good fighter for me. George St. Pierre. Let's shuffle these a little bit. Maybe here. Maybe like this. I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of guys down here. I'm not going to shuffle them, but where are we? George St. Pierre. Obviously, everyone knows George St. Pierre has been like 3 generations of welterweights. He's beaten so many dudes any way he wants to. I used to underappreciate George St. Pierre when I was a kid. I used to get so mad when I first started getting into martial arts and watching MMA. I was like, all he does is lay up people and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. But his ability to mix MMA is just top shelf, like to mix all the components into being a high-level fighter. Just crazy timing on his striking, crazy timing on all of his takedowns, really good at not getting taken down. And he's just so proficient everywhere. High-level defense in all levels, whether it's boxing, kickboxing, really hard to submit, really hard to, obviously, like I said, really hard to take down. In my opinion, got a lot better at striking over time. Did a lot better job staying disciplined and defending himself when he came in and throwing punching combinations on guys. Developed a really fucking pinpoint sniper jab. Like if you watch that fight with Josh Koscheck, he just had a boxer's level jab, and he just fucking. Not to mention Josh Koscheck fucking doesn't know how to use his head. Doesn't know how to move his head. But George just literally just stuck and thumped behind that jab over and over again. Thump, thump. Fucking put a fucking sniper shot hole in that dude's eyeball. Came from a traditional martial arts background. You can see that he knows how to throw traditional martial arts kicks. He's got a pretty good head kick, pretty good leg kick, and just super intelligent. It's hard for a lot of guys to realize that when they have all the tools and the full recipe to take dudes out of their game and beat them where they're weak. That's what George did his whole entire career. If he knew he could take a dude down, he would take him down, whoop their ass, finish them, submit them. Or at least try to. If he knew he could outstrike a dude, he would outstrike a dude, whether he'd outbox him, out-kickbox him. Really good job at using pacing, knew when to pick it up on guys, knew when to back off on guys, conserve his energy. Just a martial artist through and through. So some people would say, based off longevity and how many dudes he beat, I don't care who you want to put number one as the GOAT, Jon over... because Jon hasn't been fighting as much lately. You got to remember, George also won the 185-pound title, although it's kind of similar to how people feel about, Conor and Cejudo. They UFC and George waited till the right matchup, and they took out a guy that they knew they would have a good shot at beating, as much as I love Michael Bisping. But yeah, 2-division champ, can't make an argument if you think he's the greatest fighter of all time. Just one of the most well-rounded fighters, just a true martial artist. Khabib Nurmagomedov. I hear rumblings of dudes trying to act like Khabib Nurmagomedov is in GOAT tier and that he hasn't fought a lot of dudes that are really high level, but it's similar to Anderson Silva. It's the inverse of how Anderson took everyone out. That man's fucking grappling and will is just so fucking dominant. The mental capacity, so dominant. Got a little better at striking over time. He developed actually a pretty decent jab. Did a really good job at understanding the type of distance he needed to use his jab and get inside on guys. And one thing I will say about Khabib Nurmagomedov, underrated fucking athlete. I seen a couple fights where that dude would, when he had Conor McGregor hurt, I don't know if I've ever seen a dude pound for pound move as fast as him. When he threw that overhand right, hit Conor stumbled. Fucking Khabib was on him in a millisecond. Really high level athlete, forged in those mountains of fucking Dagestan. Just an unbreakable mind, unbreakable will. Top game, heavy. Might be the heaviest fucking top game ever. Using a lot of things like triangling people's legs, seat belts, a lot of cool positions where, if you haven't been, unless you've been put in those positions before, you don't understand how damning they are. It's one thing for a dude to be on top of you and be in your guard. You got some room to wiggle, fight back, make things happen, get sweep. What I love about Khabib's grappling is, first off, chain wrestling is key in high-level grappling. He's relentless. Doesn't use the double leg. Always goes for the single leg most times, unless he's against the fence. He's definitely done some double legs against the fence. But when he attacks, he's mostly using that single leg, getting the leg, elevation, tripping dudes down, spinning him around, taking their back, corralling him into the fence. It's shots after shots after shots. Then when he gets top position, just absolutely relentless. And the positions that he gets guys in, like when he would seatbelt dudes, or he would, lock down their legs and just sit on their legs and sit up against the fence and just pound them. It's those styles of grappling techniques that he uses. Just if you haven't been put in them, you don't understand how helpless you are in them. And just brutalize dudes like fucking crazy gas tank. Dude could go for days. I truly believe that he could have gone up to welterweight and truly become the GOAT. If I was shuffling this around, he's probably, for me, not in the top tier of GOATs, but he's definitely a GOAT. I know he's got philosophical whatnot, his ideas about fighting, and he doesn't want to fight anymore, but I definitely think that he truly missed an opportunity to cement himself as the best, because I really think he can go up to welterweight and beat all those guys too. So Khabib, GOAT status. Now, who is this next guy? Is that Kamaru? So Kamaru, I don't think Kamaru is the GOAT at 170, like Joe Rogan and all these other fucking guys tried to say. But Kamaru is an S tier guy, I guess, for the dudes. Some of the dudes, they might not be the GOAT in their division, but he's definitely S tier, GOAT tier. He's held the belt for a little while. He defended 3-4 times until he lost to what's his name there? Leon Edwards via head kick, although he was winning that fight, but hey, you're never out of a fight. Kamaru, in the beginning, really wasn't that good of a striker, mostly just took dudes down, and a lot of times in his early fights, he was kind of really boring in my opinion. I thought he kind of just took dudes down, used light levels of ground and pound, and would win these decision fights. But dude, his ability, which was crazy, is he didn't really get his belt until he was in his 30s. But he immediately jumped from a guy who had just like subpar boxing skills. All of a sudden, he's got enough boxing skills to box with the best guys. Very disciplined in his boxing, solid jab, really good straight right hand, piston straight right hand. Confident in his ability to walk forward, get guys in the clinch. He was not scared to mix it up, go toe-to-toe with guys. He got a lot better at his dirty boxing. You do not want to be in front of that guy when he fucking tries to tee off you on the fence, I would assume, if you're these guys. Like, his fighting along the fence just became really, really brutal and accurate. And obviously, didn't throw a lot of kicks, but his boxing improved enough to where he can hang with all these best boxers. TKO'd Masvidal, but obviously the wrestling is the big dimension here. Really good at mixing his wrestling in with his boxing, taking dudes down. And when he originally was kind of really boring when he would get in the top game, he became a fighter. He would get top position and just brutalize dude. Really good elbows, really good straight punches when he gets that top game, locking dudes down. He's just a GOAT tier, S tier fighter. People aren't honest about what he's accumulated as credentials. Obviously, he went undefeated for a long, long time. He got the belt, defended the belt a couple times, like 3-4 times. Not to the level of some of these people that are in front of him, but he's definitely, this generation's welterweight king, that's for sure. So Robbie Lawler. So this depends on what era of Robbie Lawler you want to talk about. I would put Robbie Lawler, the second half of his career, I would put him as a very good fighter. And then his first half of his career, I'd probably put him as at a good, and it sometimes showed to be like a decent fighter, which is crazy. His career arc is like a fucking, like lines on a fucking chart for like the fucking stock market up and down. But at his peak, when he became champion, he was a very, very good fighter. Didn't hold the belt down long enough for me to probably put him over Kamaru Usman in terms of like being up in the GOAT status. But what's not to love about Robbie Lawler's game? Had all the tools from a young age to be what he became. Wild man. As time went on, we just seen a guy mature and just fucking rise from the fucking ashes and totally just contradict the fighter that he used to be. So when he first started out, he was just a fucking brawler with really good takedown defense, wild looping punches. If he hit you, he'd connect. You could put him away. Guys like Diaz knocked him out. Just a very wild and undisciplined fighter. Just came to fucking murk people. And then early on, that's what we loved about Robbie Lawler. But man, like something happened. Robbie Lawler when he got to like 30 years old, where he just became hands down one of the most technical brawlers we've ever seen in the history of MMA. Again, he's got really good takedown defense, underrated athlete, but like his ability to walk forward on guys and wade through their attacks, really roll with the punches. I love how he'd always attack. He understood that, like, even though he went against some of the top strikers, you're going to get hit, but he was like a very lead foot dominant, like attacking the outside foot of guys. He would attack the outside foot, step off, throw a lot of weird shovel hooks, throw that left hand, and he had a really good job. That left hand was not really telegraphical. Like, you couldn't telegraph that left hand. He had like this odd build where his shoulders were kind of odd, and he would just fucking step off and sneak that left hand in, and he would double pump on that left power hand, which I thought was super money with his strike. He'd pump the jab, then he'd snap that left hand, and then step in a little again, half cock back, stab it out again. Started developing a legitimate kickboxing game, kicks to the body, kicks to the inside, outside of the leg. He's finished dudes with head kicks, flying knees. Like out of nowhere, Robbie Lawler became a very, very good fighter. Had some of these amazing knockdown, drag-out fights with Johnny Hendricks, won the belt. And I think that Robbie Lawler is one of my heroes in MMA. Probably my favorite moment in MMA is, like I said, back to that Rory McDonald fight. There was people that thought Rory McDonald was going to beat him, and I think Robbie Lawler knew that narrative. And when you've had the ups and downs that Robbie Lawler had coming into that fight, And when he fucking stood there, they said, and still, and the camera panned Robbie Lawler, and his lip was cut from, his upper lip was cut from the tip of his lip all the way up into his nostril, and he doesn't care. He's talking with his lips spreading open, splitting. He's going, they go, and buffer, and still, and he's going, and still, pointing at the ground. I was like, that shit to this day gives me goosebumps. That's probably my favorite moment of seeing someone win. Probably that, and when Holly Holm kicked Ronda in the head. Her reaction to winning, that was awesome. But just he developed everything. He could box you. He could fight backing up. He could box you coming forward, cut angles off on guys. He fucking had a nasty clinch along the fence. He could take dudes down. He was fucking winning with head kicks, flying knees. Like, he was just he became a very calculated berserker of a fighter. Really solid gas tank. Just smart. He was a smart technical brawler. The maturation of Robbie Lawler is truly one of the greatest things to behold in MMA. So he's a very good fighter for me. Paulo Costa, good. So Paulo Costa, in my opinion, he's developed and gotten a little bit better over time, but I do think Paulo Costa falls to this category of just very, very efficient and effective at what he does in terms of bludgeoning dudes the way he does, but it's just not wicked polish. He throws with a lot of speed. It's primarily boxing oriented. He's got a pretty decent takedown defense. But yeah, he's not a really polished fighter. I don't think he's a very smart fighter. I solely think that his aggression and speed and athleticism has really carried him throughout, his run to trying to get the belt. I also think 185 is not that deep of a division right now, so it makes him kind of stick out along the top. I mean, he can get by on a lot of these dudes because of his, his speed and his decent boxing. A lot of my buddies just really thought he was going to take out Izzy, and they thought he was a bad matchup for Izzy. It's like, dude, it's the other way around, but I'm sure they bet money on it. They didn't want to listen to me. And now that I look at good, Paulo Costa, he's not a better fighter than Donald Cerrone. He's not a better fighter than a lot of these guys in here. So it's rough. I kind of want to elevate some of these guys, but maybe I'll just leave them in good, because there's definitely levels to this shit. So again, it's a little bit different when you're talking about the women, because, women's fighting is still developing. In terms of pure effectiveness over time, I feel like I have to put Cyborg up in very good. Some of the similar attributes that make her very effective against the other women are ones that Amanda Nunes has. The sheer athleticism, the aggression. She has okay kickboxing chops offensively at times. Defensively, she's very, very bad. The speed was her undoing against Nunes. She just couldn't keep up with the skill and the speed gap. And yeah, she hits like a truck, but, it's easier when the girls, really aren't on your level from an athleticism and an aggression arc. You're going to bludgeon a lot of these girls. She's also fought a lot of girls that aren't really that great at times, because she's been fighting in a heavier weight class, and all that happy shit. But, I mean, throughout her career, she's been really, really effective and only lost her hand for little girls. So I feel like I got to put her in very good. I don't think I could put her in the GOAT status. I don't think she'll ever beat Amanda Nunes in a fight, but I'll put her in a very good based off the women's division, what she's done to these girls. Nick Diaz, very good. So the reason why Nick Diaz goes in very good, and now that I see Masvidal and Nick Diaz up in the very good tier, Justin Gaethje in the very good tier, I do think I did the right job putting these three guys down here in the good tier. Nate Diaz is one of the more underrated fighters in MMA. Nate Diaz is really, really good boxing, really good cardio, comes forward with just this fucking cascading fucking hodgepodge of punches. He can switch stances. He can box in either stance. Really good at him and his brother haven't, even though they do take damage, they haven't taken damage the way some of these fighters have taken damage. They're very intelligent fighters. They can roll with the punches. They just fought so much just the sheer volume that dude throws on guys. He will always beat Donald Cerrone. He will always beat, and he's beaten both those guys. He will always beat Anthony Pettis because his ability to walk forward, keep dudes in front of him, cut angles off, just put the pressure on those traditional style kickboxers. That style will always beat those guys in MMA every time. High level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Has a lot of submissions on his record. He's got some of the most fight of the night, whether he can beat dudes, whether it's by TKO, submission, decision. He's beat some of the best dudes at 155 and 170. To me, Nate Diaz has always been a very good fighter. Not just a good fighter. Just a beast. High-level fight IQ, durable, just comes forward. Not surprised, motherfucker. Just beating dudes down. I love that motherfucker. So Robert Whittaker. This is tough because I feel like Robert Whittaker might be the best fighter in the good tier. So it makes it tough. Yeah, he might be the best fighter in the good tier. So Robert Whittaker is very good. So we probably want to move these around. Probably should move these around. Gagey's going to go up here. Probably should move these around. I know Hot Masvidal beat him, but so Whittaker. Whittaker is one of the more interesting fighters, probably in all of MMA. He has a style that no one really uses. He has this odd cross between almost like a taekwondo stance and a shoulder roll. His lower body says taekwondo, and he kind of leans forward a little bit. It's like a kung fu, but he leans forward and he does this leaning shoulder roll stance where he's rarely ever covering his head. Throws a lot of odd punches, a lot of shovel hooks, shovel jabs. Has a lot of glancing, odd-angled overhands. Really good at mixing in his kicks with his punches. Underrated in the clinch. He's actually underrated to take a dude's down. He has a lot of really nice single leg knee tapping type stuff in the clinch. I think he has underrated punching power as well. I do think his fighting style gets him hit a lot. I think that his style makes it so he's susceptible that when he gets in really close, he's not always in great position all the time to win a straight up boxing fight with guys. Phenomenal athlete, really good at not getting taken down. His ability to fight at all distances, whether he's cutting angles or whether he's just dashing in and darting in. I do think he's a very good blitzer, and we haven't talked much in this about the guys that are really good at blitzing, but I really think that a lot of the finishers, even a lot of the high-level finishers lack the ability to blitz. Now, albeit he does blitzing in a lot different fashion, a lot of his blitzes are 1 or 2 punch blitzes, and they're usually more powerful. He sets up more of a powerful blitz, and more than one of his fights, he's blitzed in with a 1 or 2 punch, gets a guy hurt, then he's all over him. Traditional boxing, because of his boxing style, I feel in certain positions he can be taken advantage of. He's floated around in different weight classes, 170, 185. I think the sheer skill set of Adesanya and his ability to gauge distance against a guy that leans so forward like that and implements the style attack. It's hard for me to explain it in words. You'd have to go watch, see Robert Whittaker fight. I feel like stylistically, Izzy's always going to be a tough matchup with him because of the way he plots that jumping back and forth, that plotty jumpy back, light on his toes. I'm using plotty in the wrong context. Hopping back and forth, but he leans forward. It's a very odd. He does a really good job. One thing I will say, he does a really good job disguising head kicks. So he'll blitz forward and throw a couple punches out and loop an overhand and get the guy to move one way, and then right behind that punch comes a fucking odd round kick. He does a lot of really cool, weird combinations. He's just a complete fighter. Robert Whittaker's a fucking monster. So yeah, Robert Whittaker, very good. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, decent. There's our first decent guy. Rozenstruik is kind of an undersized. He's an undersized, or is that Derek Lewis? Is that Rozenstruik or is that Derek Lewis? I can't tell. So if that was Derek Lewis, I'd put him in good. If it's Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I can't tell. It looks like Rozenstruik's face. That's definitely Rosenstrike. If it's Derek Lewis, I would say you already know what Derek Lewis is about. I'd probably put Derek Lewis in good. Just a fucking beast of a man. Come forward, throwing bombs. Not really a great mixed martial artist. Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Lewis has been more effective than Rosenstrike. I feel like Rosenstrike has more skills in kickboxing, but I don't really think he's all that effective with them. I don't know. This is an odd one. This is like the worst photo they could have used. I can't tell who it is. We'll say it's Derek Lewis just for fun. Derek Lewis goes into good. Derek Lewis. Underrated, I think, with the speed of his punches. I just don't think he's had enough time, in my opinion, in MMA with better coaches to really hone his striking skills. Obviously, he's got solid takedown defense. When you take him down, there's not much to do, but he can do. But he's been really effective in terms of knocking all these heavyweights out. I can't say his skill set probably leans more towards a decent fighter, but his power punching and his speed, underrated speed, has been effective at the heavyweight division, obviously. He's been knocking everyone out except for a few guys. So I'll put Derek Lewis, if that is him, at good. I don't know what this is, so I'm going to put this down here. This is Stipe Miocic. So Stipe Miocic goes up in GOAT tier. So Stipe Miocic, yeah, he's lost to Ngannou, but who hasn't lost to Ngannou at this point? He just hits dudes and they die. But overall skill set, I would say Stipe might. Well, people won't like this. I think Tom Aspinall is the most skilled heavyweight right now until Jon Jones gets there. But I would say in terms of GOAT status, Stipe's defended that title more than anyone. Beat DC twice. Really solid boxer, technical boxer, a guy that's very patient with his boxing, underrated punch and power. He has offensive wrestling in his tool bag, although he doesn't really use it. Really good at being light on his feet. I would say his striking defense is not the best. He isn't a firefight with guys. He doesn't do a really good job moving his head. But in terms of his whole well-rounded game, I'd say he's a well-rounded fighter. We don't really see his jiu-jitsu, but his grappling as a whole. He can take down dudes if he wants. He can stuff takedowns if he wants. And he's, most of the time, the better striker in these striking exchanges with guys. And obviously, some say he's the heavyweight GOAT. I'll put him in the GOAT tier. I don't think any of the heavyweights. Well, I mean, Francis Ngannou, I just don't think he's as skilled as them. It remains to be seen what goes on with Francis, although I love Francis. I want to put Francis in the GOAT tier, but he just hasn't done enough yet. Darren Till. I love Darren Till. If anyone that knows me knows how much I love Darren Till. Darren Till has a bunch of skills. He has the ability to be a really dynamic fighter. I think at times he's not the most strategic fighter. I think some people think he's boring. I definitely think he doesn't take enough chances in fights. I think he's a lot of times very content with just being, he kind of reminds me of Tyron Woodley when he fights. He has all the tools in his arsenal to open up and shellac dudes, but he just doesn't, for whatever reason, he doesn't put it all together. He's very tentative when it comes to the striking exchanges, even though he could obliterate guys. I think he's gun shy a lot. I don't know if that's worried, if it's because he's worried about getting taken down. He's trained with high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys his whole entire career, wrestlers his whole entire career. Has the ability to be a dynamic striker. His left hand is a fucking piston. He's fast, really good kicks, really good Thai boxing, Thai clinch moves, elbows. Really dangerous when he gets you along the fence, opens up and throws combinations. But, he's just strategically, he's not good enough to be in this very good tier with these guys. And again, a lot of these fighters in the good category, there's deficiencies in their games from a strategic standpoint, or a lack of skills is making it so they can't be in this tier with these guys. And so that's the way I'm going about it. Tony Ferguson, so this is a hard one. Tony Ferguson, I'm going to put him into very good, because at one point he was hands down one of the best 55-pound fighters for an extended period of time, for years. Tony Ferguson could definitely get it taken advantage of in the takedown department, similar to Nate Diaz. I've always thought guys like Tony Ferguson, the Diaz brothers, Carlos Condit, guys like even Donald Cerrone at times has been taken down. I feel like there's a level of actual athleticism and physicality that will, from a pure physicality standpoint, obviously we know Tony Ferguson come in and has these wide array of skills. And you throw them together and hurt dudes really bad. But sheer force, mass, frame, utilizing your whole physical frame to manipulate opponents in the cage. I feel like Tony Ferguson's one of those guys where he fights way, his how do I want to say this? His approach to the fight is very finesse, even though how he implements that finesse results in him hurting guys really bad. He's not a power-oriented grappler. He's not a power-oriented striker. He stays on the side, although I do think at times he has underrated power. But I think his ability to be so unorthodox can be his undoing as well. I think a lot of his unorthodox techniques, his odd combinations, staying on the outside and some of the odd stuff, rolling for Eminaris, cartwheel kicks and shit. I think against the guys that are very durable and seasoned and well-rounded, I think they can wade through a lot of the loopy stuff that Tony Ferguson does, and the takedown usually is the path to victory. Now, more of the positives, Tony has always been a decent unorthodox boxer offensively. At times, he shows a very good ability to hit dudes with power backing up, although he's not very technical when he backs up. Just like Cerrone, razor wire jiu-jitsu. You don't want him. His top game's nasty. If he gets on top of you, he blasts you with elbows, look for submissions, really good guard. And the unorthodox factor worked for him for a very long period of time. I just think his overall skill set puts him into very good. We can't ignore the fucking 8-year stretch where he just obliterated everyone that fought him at 170 and 155. And in his prime, he can hang with a lot of these dudes in this category that are in his weight. Problem is, I think he's fought so much now. He can't take punches the way he used to. At some point, that shit, Tony eats a lot of shots to give a lot of shots, and I just think that the wheels have started to fall off the wagon for him. And I hope he gets all that situated. I hope he's, he probably should retire soon. I don't want to see him taking any more shots. He couldn't take Nate's shots last time they fought. So, but yeah, Tony Ferguson's skill set for me is too deep to put him into good. There is still something to be said for the fact that very technical fighters that can wrestle could take out a lot of these unorthodox guys. Eventually they get their hands on them, wade through a lot of the smoke and mirrors and take him down and beat him up. All these idiots that think Tony Ferguson would have taken Khabib out even in their primes. Khabib would have waded through his strikes, waded through his jiu-jitsu, and just fucking beat him down. Probably would have choked him out. So there's that. Daniel Cormier, Goat Tier. Hate him or love him, Daniel Cormier is one of the best and most well-rounded fighters of all time. A lot of people don't know what that dude did before he ever even got to UFC. He was an alternate in the Strikeforce Grand Prix, hadn't fought any high-level competition, just goes out there with next to no striking. He's just like, oh, whatever, I will outstrike everyone and take everyone down. Won the whole Grand Prix, just ran through dudes like Bigfoot Silva, Josh Barnett, dude. Josh Barnett's one of my favorite fighters. He ragdolled Josh Barnett. And that was fucking, I don't even know. He had less than 10 fights when fought Josh Barnett. Really, really underrated boxing skills, even though he fights dudes that are shorter than him. He's just really, really got a really good defensive pawing clinch style where he gets inside guys. Really good with his single collar ties, ripping dudes right and left so he can throw his short, heavy shots on guys. That first fight with Stipe was a masterclass in shorter, smaller guy manipulating bigger, longer, taller guy in the fucking clinch and just murking him. That's one of the most flawless victories I've ever seen in an MMA fight. Was the first time he took Stipe out. Obviously, one of the greatest wrestlers ever to fight in MMA, offensive or defensively. He's got some submissions to his game. He can take you down, choke you out, beat you up. His top game is just fucking heavy. became an underrated kickboxer. He started really getting really good with low kicks, really good gas tank. Just an animal. I hear that he's like one of the greatest human beings in real life. Who knows? You know, you don't know these people, but supposedly he's a first-rate human being too. So Daniel Cormier, GOAT tier. You can make the argument that he could be like GOAT tier heavyweight too. He was already beating some of the best heavyweights that went on to fight in the UFC before he was even in the UFC. He was beating all the heavyweights in the UFC up until he fought Stipe. Like, you know, he could be a two-way GOAT in some people's minds. Yoel Romero. So Yoel Romero goes into very good. Obviously, you could talk about like all the physical advantages Yoel Romero has. Just a fucking freak since he fucking popped out the puss. Like, super explosive, super aggressive. Got a lot better at striking as time went on. Had this odd, at times, little odd with his strategies and fights. I think he took too much punishment in a lot of his fights. He won a lot of fights where he would be losing fights, progressively throughout a round, and then just explode on a dude and beat him. Powerful hook, powerful overhands, really powerful single collar tie uppercuts when he gets in the clinch with guys. I think a big downfall is his style of wrestling is he's really good at taking dudes down and putting them on the floor, but when you notice he gets top position, a lot of dudes were able to get up from his top position. His style of wrestling in the Olympics, a lot of it's predicated on actually just taking dudes down. I don't know what the scoring systems are and like that because I don't watch wrestling in the Olympics that closely. But a lot of times he's very efficient at taking dudes down and not getting taken down, but he wasn't that efficient at keeping dudes on the ground. And because of that, I think he wasted a lot of opportunities to, you know, advance himself further. A lot of guys that beat him were because he couldn't maintain the positions he wanted on guys, and they would outstrike him. But dangerous fighter all the way around. Yoel Romero just so explosive at any moment, he could shut your fucking lights out. You can ask Weidman, you can ask fucking Rockhold. That fight with Rockhold, where he finished Rockhold out of nowhere, and then they were like kissing. That shit's so funny. I love you, Mike. I love you. Fucking, that dude's a fucking beast. The fucking soldier of God, man. Yoel Romero. So, again, I still have some guys that are borderline. I could see myself at his peak putting Anthony Pettis into very good. I could see at the peak put Donald Cerrone into very good. I could even see put Edson Barboza at his peak into very good. Weidman and like I feel like the Weidman and the Woodley one are the ones that I'll get the most heat on. But Weidman lost to a lot of fucking dudes in ways where I was like, he's kind of overrated. As time's gone on, I thought Weidman's kind of overrated. Woodley's another dude. Some of the wins, some of the longevity Woodley has, he beat a lot of guys. Some people would put him into very good. You mix these around. Probably go something like this. Probably go something like that. You mix this one around. Probably go something like... God, this one's a lot tougher. Probably go something like that. Maybe like that. The GOAT tier. You could put these guys anywhere you want. Who's number one? You could probably put Anderson. Well, you got to put Adesanya in front of Anderson probably because Adesanya still young. He's probably not going to lose a lot of fights. Beat Anderson. Not in his prime, but Max Holloway. Well, you probably got to put Khabib in front of. Amanda's been dominant. Probably something like. So, I mean, I feel like I want to put DC higher up on this GOAT list, too. Probably DC here. I know people give me shit putting Stipe at the end, but that's this little GOAT list here. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, I'm hoping to find or make better tiers. I seen there was a lightweight one. There's a flyweight one, but they're not really all that deep. And, obviously I know a lot of fighters, but yeah, so this is the first tier list of many I'm going to do. I'm probably going to do I want to do positional positions at in the NFL, like quarterback, wide receiver, all that. Probably do some more fighting ones. Probably do some video game ones and maybe some music ones. But these tier rankers are pretty fun to me, and I've seen people do them, so I'll just try my hand at it. Please leave your comments down in there. I know this area, the good area, got a little tough and sideways. Like I said, I could see some of these dudes moving up, but it's the GOAT tiers. They kind of threw a lot of these guys are some of the best fighters ever fight. So it is a little hard parsing out, if the list was a little bit deeper, you'd probably for sure pump some of these guys up into very good. So yeah, that's my tier list. We got a week 4. Is it week 4, week 5? I think it's week 5 power rankings next week. And then this coming Friday, which is next week, we're going to get all the guys together for 4 to 5 weeks in and talk about what's going on in the football landscape. I'm also hoping to get my brother and Kyle on for an episode, talk about the landscape of video games soon. Haven't done a video game one in a while, so yeah, we're going to get those rolling. Hope everyone has a good weekend. Hope you enjoy the football. Comment, subscribe, holla at your boy.